Chapter 15, and let's go straight into it. So we have Van Helsing and Dr. Seward. Van Helsing is trying to explain here to Dr. Seward what's happened with Lucy, and we had the end of the previous chapter and we had that use of passive voiceover made by Miss Loosely, the revelations about the Bloofer Lady. Dr. Seward's responses of disbelief. Dr. Van Helsing, are you mad? And Van Helsing's response is, madness were easy to bear compared with truth like this. Oh, my friend, why think you did I go so far round? Why take so long to tell you so simple a thing? So again, I like the way that Stoker contextualises why Van Helsing is so evasive about telling the truth. It's explained, really, it's about creating suspense for the reader, but in terms of rationalising it within the world of the actual story itself, it's explained that it's Van Helsing trying to carefully present the information to him at the right time. Tonight I go to prove it. Dare you come with me? So they're going to go to the churchyard. He's got a key. Got a key for the Westenra family tomb. And then we spend the night, you and I, in the churchyard where Lucy lies. What a lot of fun. My heart sank within me, for I felt that there was some fearful ordeal before us. True. That's true. Yeah. So again, we've got some foreshadowing there. Or prolepsis, if you prefer. There's a nice anaphoric reference here to only 10 days ago a wolf got out. Remember when Dracula visited the zoo? And we also, of course, here we got about the Bloofer Lady, but the little child recovering in the hospital apparently had been going on about wanted to go and play with the Bloofer Lady because it looks like she's got hypnotic powers, as vampires often do. And we will go over the page. Little side note, I just noticed this as I was preparing. There's a little reference to bicyclists here, and that's another bit of modernity because bicycles and bicyclists, notice we say cyclists, it's relatively new as a hobby, so, and the technology is fairly new as well, so just having bikes is a new thing. They kind of had ones before, but they didn't really have gears and you just sort of walked along with them and they were a bit rubbish. Then we have visiting the tomb at night, the tomb in the daytime, and when wreathed with fresh flowers it looked grim and gruesome enough. A bit of consonance there. But now some days afterwards, when the flowers the flowers hung lank and dead, their whites turning to rust. So these colour references here, greens to browns. So there's connotations of decay, spider, beetle, time discoloured stone, so as an adjective there, dust encrusted, hyphenated compound there. So you've got all of these connotations here of time passing. It conveyed irresistibly the idea that life, animal life, was not the only thing that could pass away. So there's a sense of decay in everything in the environment as well. So, you know, the metal and the rust and all that kind of stuff. If anyone's worried about this, of why Van Helsing seems to be dropping sperm around the tomb, if anyone's worried, there's two explanations for this. One is it's either the wax from the candle that he's holding there, or it could be to do with the fact that in Victorian times they used oil from sperm whales' brains in some lamps. So there's two potential innocent explanations for it. So you don't have to get on the phone about that one and complain to the authorities about what Van Helsing is getting up to. So two innocent explanations for that. Then we've got strange, really, because Lucy's being described as being dead, but we've got a little bit of sexualization here, which is still being sexualized, if that's the right word, objectified, or described in a sexual way. It seemed to be such an affront to the dead as it would have been to have stripped off her clothing in her sleep whilst living. And I can't help but think Stoker's put that in for reasons of, well, admittedly strange kind of titillation, but the idea of her being a young, attractive woman who Seward was obviously attracted to and proposed to. So I think, for want of a better word, Stoker's getting a bit fruity there with that one. And I drew near and looked. The coffin was empty. Dun, dun, dun. So where is she? She's out there trying to collect little children to take a nibble off. We must have more proof. Come with me. So we have here, just highlighted this just to think that these are highly intelligent, multi-skilled men here. Anyhow, it's not difficult to pick a lock of that kind. I just kind of threw that away as a highlighted one there. The yew tree I've highlighted because in most churchyards in England you get yew trees traditionally, particularly in the older ones. I think there's always going to be a yew tree, so they tend to be associated with death because of graveyards. This is set in a graveyard, but anyway. Then a little way off beyond a line of scattered juniper trees which mark the pathway to the church, a white dim figure flitted in the direction of the tomb. So this is Lucy. And the juniper tree itself has got there's loads of things to do with juniper trees. It's associated with health. It's just associated with beauty and youth. So it links to Lucy as well. It also apparently it links to survival too, because juniper trees don't need a lot of water. So that could link to Lucy being undead. And again, I think they're pretty common churchyard trees as well, but I might be wrong about that. Then, yeah, there's another little child there that Van Helsing rescues. They have a great plan here because there's, again, Stoker realises that he does tend to cross the I's and dot the T's, because he realised that what they really should do is take the child to a police station to rescue it. But of course, Stoker realises that this is going to slow the story down. So if we take it to the police station, we should have to give some account of our movements during the night. So the police will go, what are you doing hanging around in a graveyard? And they say, well, we're looking out for a dead woman who keeps kidnapping children. The police are going to go, did you kidnap the child? Anyway, so it's going to cause, and it's just going to take up endless pages to cover, and it's not worth it. So instead, Stoker comes up with this plan, which I don't think really would work in real life, but it all fell out well, as Dr. Seward says. So we finally decided that we should take it to the heath, and then when we heard a policeman coming, would leave it where he could not fail to find it. There's a policeman coming. Put the kid there where he's going to walk. So that's what they do, and then it works. But that's just a neat way, really, of short-circuiting a potential plot deviation that Stoker really doesn't want to have to go into at this point. But it's a bit of a convenient one, really. Why did I highlight empty? Oh yeah, the coffin was empty. If you haven't seen on eyesight, the coffin. But that's all good fun, isn't it? And then empty. So just a reminder there. I'm not sure why I highlighted it like that in such a weird way. But this time they open it and they find there lay Lucy, seemingly just as we had seen her the night before her funeral. Is this a juggle? Never try juggling with corpses. They're too heavy and bits might fall off. That's a joke. But anyway, but he means really, is it like a scam or a joke? They look at her teeth. There's lots of things here about her sharpness of her teeth. Most people, that's Stoker again doing the sense of the Dutch accent and dialect again as well. There's a bit here, again, I'd not really paid much attention to this before, but they say because she's a slightly different to normal vampires, according to Van Helsing, because she was bitten by a vampire when she was in a trance, sleepwalking. In a trance she died, in a trance she is dead. So because she was hypnotised, basically, when she was turned into a vampire, she looks like she's hypnotised, so she looks less vampire-y, less vampiric than normally vampires do. So this means that Van Helsing, it seems more difficult to cut her head off when she looks more normal. So I think really, again, it's Stoker generating, it's just making the story more interesting, because it's going to be better to hold the confrontation with Vampire Lucy when she's actually a vampire, and it's just going to be more atmospheric and interesting. You could just say, oh, why didn't you just cut her head off right now? He could, couldn't he? But Stoker, again, he's short-circuiting it and say, oh, we can't do it now because she looks too normal. So that makes it more difficult than it is normally killing a vampire when they look more monstrous. But here is his plan. How will you do this bloody work? I think he means literally bloody. I shall cut off her head and fill her mouth with garlic, and I shall drive a stake through her body. So Van Helsing is characteristically prosaic there. Well, according to Van Helsing as well, she have yet no life taken. So she doesn't, at least to Van Helsing's knowledge here, and he's very confident in this assertion that she hasn't actually killed anyone yet. I don't know. I'm not sure how you definitely know that. Just because the newspapers haven't reported any deaths doesn't mean to say that there wouldn't be any children dead. However, I have a theory about this, and I think it's Stoker is setting it up so for the Victorian readers, they're not going to worry about Lucy's soul when she's released from a vampire curse, because she won't have actually killed anyone. It means she should still be able to go to heaven. That's my theory about why that's being presented in that way. But I think the horror is still there. She's still kidnapping children. She's still hurting children. I said in the last video about there's always a sense of extra horror, isn't it, of a defying nature of a woman preying on children. That's what Stoker's drawing on, that kind of, I don't know, not stereotype, more archetypal presentation of a female villain or monster, the way it's preying on children. To emphasise that horror. It's the same as like with Hansel and Gretel and the witch, isn't it? It's that kind of idea. And the Wicked Queen and Snow White. You think about all those things, it's drawing on that kind of idea of female corruption, and that corruption involves going against being like a mother in this case, isn't it? She's preying on children. Anyway, so I think that's so that she's in the clear when she is released from a vampiric curse. So we have here Van Helsing worried about... I've just accidentally drawn on it there. So we have Van Helsing worried about Arthur's reaction. No, I told him once, and since then I learned much. Now, since I know it is all true, 100,000 times more do I know that he must pass through the bitter waters to reach the sweet. So a bit of antithesis there. And we have this little letter here, note left by Van Helsing in his portmanteau, Berkeley Hotel, directed to John Seward, not delivered. It's a rare moment of Van Helsing's contribution, really, in terms of the epistolary format. You don't get many bits from Van Helsing, but this wasn't actually delivered. But again, it's about adding suspense. A sense of Van Helsing has written this in case he doesn't survive. He goes out to camp out again on his own. I go alone to watch in that churchyard. It pleases me that the undead Miss Lucy shall not leave tonight, that so on the morrow night she may be more eager. Therefore I shall fix some things she like not, garlic and a crucifix, and shall seal up the door of the tomb. She is young as undead, and will heed. Because she's a weaker vampire, because she's a younger vampire, she's not going to be able to shrug off these things as easily as Dracula can resist them, or he still doesn't like them, but she's a young vampire compared to Dracula, who's obviously long established. Then over the page, for Miss Lucy or from her I have no fear, but that other to whom there is undead, he have now the power to seek her tomb and find shelter. This is obviously, in terms of context, thinking about Dracula, and Dracula is more powerful as he is the vampire who's sired her. And look, we've got more of his powers. He have always a strength in his hand of 20 men. Besides, he can summon his wolf, and I know not what. So the crew of light, as they're later known, the goodies, are still behind. They don't know everything that Dracula can do. We've got more ideas as the reader of his powers, haven't we? Therefore I write in this case... Sorry, I should do the voice. Therefore I write this in case. Take the papers that are with this, the diaries of Harker and the rest, and read them, and then find this great undead, and cut off his head, and burn his heart, or drive a stake through it, so that the world may rest from him. So this is like his backup plan. If Van Helsing dies, read everything about the case, Dr. Seward, and you've got to take over from me, and you've got to kill Dracula, and then you'll solve it. But this wasn't delivered, but it's designed to add to suspense. Then we have Dr. Seward speculates, is it possible that the professor can have done it himself? He's so abnormally clever that if he went off his head, a bit of a colloquial phrase there for Dr. Seward, he would carry out his intent with regard to some fixed idea in a wonderful way. So he thinks, as a rational scientific man, Dr. Seward is thinking, well, actually, maybe the most logical explanation is that Van Helsing is gone completely gaga and he's setting this all up for some weird reason. Because obviously, you know, going gaga is not the politically correct term for it, but you know what I mean. Dr. Seward would be worried about his friend's sanity potentially because everything seems so unusual and out there. Then we have over the page, he tells, this is Van Helsing telling Arthur and Quincey about what they're going to do, but again, in typical Van Helsing way, he doesn't tell them everything straight away, and Arthur reacts in the way that Van Helsing was worried about anyway. I don't quite see his drift, but I swear he's honest, and that's good enough for me. So Quincey will take it on board. But Arthur, as in Lord Godalming as he is now, he does agree to go along with it, but he's quite shocked by Van Helsing's proposal of what he wants to do. To enter the tomb? Arthur stood up. To enter the tomb? Sorry, the lightsaber went a bit strange then. So Arthur's reaction, Arthur stood up. Professor, are you in earnest or is this some monstrous joke? And went in the tomb to open the coffin. I should have highlighted that, but I didn't. So this is all really shocking because this is all taboo stuff, isn't it? Tampering with the dead, interfering with graves, you know, tombs, churchyards. It's a taboo. So it's being presented, obviously, it's being presented by Van Helsing and it's being reacted to with shock and disbelief and horror. But this night our feet must tread in thorny paths, or later and forever the feet you love must walk in paths of flame. So remember what I said earlier on about Lucy's soul, the battle for Lucy's soul here. So they're trying to convince the two, and they do go along with it eventually. So has there been any mistake? Has she been buried alive? I go no further than to say that she might be undead. And that's a neologism for Bram Stoker because I believe he invented it as well. We're very used to that word now. And notice it's hyphenated, which we wouldn't normally do. May I cut off the head of dead Miss Lucy? Heavens and earth, no! Cried Arthur with a storm of passions as a metaphor there. So it is obviously presented as something horrific. I too have a duty to do, a duty to others, a duty to you, a duty to the dead, and by God I shall do it. So I was thinking of that as parallel phrasing, and actually you could even say there's a bit of incrementum there because it builds up in semantic potency, doesn't it, as well? But a lot of this is all right because we as the readers and Stoker's Victorian readers know that we're dealing with a force of evil here, and we know more than Arthur does. So again, there's dramatic irony here as well. And what Van Helsing's actually proposing is, we as readers go, yeah, that makes sense. But of course, it's very hard for Arthur to see that as a character as well. Arthur said at the end, said in a broken voice, "Oh, it is hard to think of it, and I cannot understand, but at least I shall go with you and wait." So he does manage to persuade them. So that's what most of that chapter is about. Anyway, thank you for listening to this one. Like, subscribe, comment, bells, listen to the other ones. There's loads of stuff there. Bye.